Hey, this is Davin with Hagerty and Redline Rebuilds. Today I'm back on our 1950 Buick Straight 8, and I have a lot of stuff put on here, but I have to get these valves set. So I'm going to walk through all that, then get the valve cover on, the side cover on, and then start mounting the intake and exhaust and all that jazz. So here we roll. All right, so the theory is I need to go through and I need to set some preload to the lifter so I have no lash, because this is a hydraulic lift cam. So in doing that, as I rotate the crankshaft, it's going to raise and lower or open and close the valves. So to set zero lash on the intake valve, what I do is I roll the crank until my exhaust valve or the exhaust lifter just starts to open. Then I can set my lash on the intake. Subsequently, to set the exhaust valve, as the intake goes through its full travel, so it comes all the way up, and just as it starts to close is when you set the exhaust valve. The reason you're doing that differently is how the cam lobes overlap, and you want to make sure that your lifter is on the base circle of the camshaft. So that's the process. All right, so to set my exhaust valve, as I rotate the crankshaft, I'm feeling for the intake lifter to come all the way up, and just when it starts to fall, right there, I can set my exhaust. Regardless of intake or exhaust valve, to set that, I use the little screw here at the top, which sets the height, takes up that lash. I'm going to rotate the push rod with my left hand, turn the screw with my right, rub my tummy, and pat my head. So as I rotate both of them, right when I feel that contact come in, right there, okay, just double check it. Yep, right there, okay? That is zero. Now on a hydraulic cam, you need to preload it. I'm doing this Buick at a half a turn. I can always take it out later if it's too much, but I know where they're all set. Anywhere from 1/4 to 3/4 is typically the rule of thumb. Rotate the screwdriver 1/2 and bring my lock nut down. Grab my wrench out of my pocket. I'm going to hold the screw and turn the lock nut because I don't want to change my set point, but I need to lock it in place. There. That's the exhaust. On the intake side, as the exhaust, and it is also very important that you rotate the crankshaft clockwise, or the normal rotation. If for some reason you have a motor that's running counterclockwise, because there are some. All right, so now as my exhaust valve starts to rise, then I can set my intake. So the exhaust started to rise. Now I can set my intake valve. I can set the intake lash. Hopefully I'm not confusing anyone as I walk through and explain this. I understand that I'm kind of changing my nomenclature a little bit, meaning one time I'm telling you you're setting the lash into the lifter, the next you're setting lash into the valve. At the end of the day, it's exactly the same stuff, because you have one big system that includes from the camshaft, all the tolerances relative to the shaft itself, how it's located within the block, and then how the lifter length is, and then the length of your push rod, and then your length on your valve. Of course, the variations that are relative to the rocker arms, and all that can be taken up right here with this adjustable rocker arm end, or the tip of this. So at the end of the day, I'm just taking out all the lash into that system, and I'm ultimately preloading into the hydraulic portion of the lifter. Hopefully that clears things up. All right, so here's what we have. We have all the lashes set. We have oil in it, and this little feed tube here is on. And what I mocked up is the oil filter goes in line here. So from an oiling system standpoint, your pump is down here. It's run via the distributor and the camshaft. The camshaft actually drives the distributor, which in turn drives the oil pump. And then of course it feeds your main line here, going to your cam bearings and your main bearings and the rod bearings. Then you have this feed line that comes out, comes up, and would actually go through this canister filter, but right now I don't have any way to hold this, so I just mocked it up with a straight line. And then that feeds the valve train. So it goes in here, goes up here, goes down the shaft, fills the shaft full of pressure and oil, then feeds the lifters, kind of the last thing. You'll have a little oil that come up here, so on and so forth. Now, don't ask me how I know this is pressurized because, well, let's just say there was a mess on the floor to clean up, and that happens.
Whoa, 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 whoa!
Where's it squirting on it?
Plug that.
I didn't plug that one because I didn't see that it was needed to be. That's interesting that it squirts there.
Yeah, a little accident. I wish I had a shot of it actually shooting out because that was pretty awesome.
Huh.
It shot it out like he was.
So, lesson learned. I wouldn't want anyone to think I was an expert, an actual expert. So, with that, now, with basically this is actually from the Buick that we did, the nail head, just a modified deal. I can spin the oil pump shaft with the drill motor and create pressure. And hopefully I don't have any accidents. All right, here we roll. We got oil pressure coming already. Not pushing real hard, but. All right, excellent. So running it with just the drill motor, I had 40 pounds of pressure. It filled this a lot faster than what I was expecting. I thought it was going to take forever and a day, especially since this is the feed tube, but it supplies a lot of volume. There aren't any feed tubes up through the pedestals like there was on the Hemi motor. And I mentioned that I'm circumventing the filtering system But what it does, it's still a parasitic style system, meaning call it a relief valve function, as most oil filters have, meaning not 100% of the oil is filtered at any point in time in the engine while it's running. So what you do is you wean off some of it and filter most of it. So this line, even though I'm getting some pressure that's coming up here, but I had a lot of it that was pushing back. So that tells me that that's what it was doing. Again, with the distributor in there, it might block a little of that off and force more up into here. Regardless, that's a lot of just generalizations, I'll call it, from there. So at this point, I'm happy. I got plenty of oil circulation. Remember, that's a rebuilt pump. I rebuilt that pump by myself or on my own and with a kit, but so that's working well. I got good oil pressure here. At this point, I'm comfortable putting the side cover on, finally, and the valve cover on, finally, and actually making this more complete and closer to firing. That's what we're after. Okay. All right, here we go. So now we're gonna add the cooling system, and seemingly in typical Buick Straight 8 fashion, we've got an overcomplicated system. We have a water pump that traditionally stops right here, but then there's this gooseneck, and then a gooseneck, and then another gooseneck. So, well, here's how it goes. The thermostat portion that opens it is the spring area. So this is where the temperature needs to be, if you will, to allow this to open. So as the spring temperature changes, the tension changes and it opens up. Okay, so the idea though is that needs to be down towards the engine side of things. The reason I say that is it also assembles that way and will not function nearly as well. Okay, there's that. All right, so we have our water pump contraption, kind of looks like an old school still. And we've got to throw the blade on it and the pulley on it, of course. But other than that, the water pump system is now completed from that aspect. It's ready to go out to the radiator here and over here on this side. And then next thing we're going to do is we're going to throw the intake and the exhaust on, and the little breather and the engine mount on this side, and of course the generator. But that's next time. So hey, thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you learned a little something about as far as how to set valve lash. And if you got any questions that are a little more detailed, feel free to shoot us an email and we'll figure it out for you, give you a hand. But until then, get out in the shop, get your work done. It's a beautiful day. And of course, you all have beautiful projects to work on. So, see you.